Welcome to Subul Islam online classes. In this session, we are going to see the first part of chapter number 6, client-side scripting using JavaScript. This chapter is common for both computer science and second year commerce students. So this is a very important chapter as far as web designing is concerned. We have seen HTML and the basics of web designing in previous chapters. That is, HTML is the basic markup language which is used for designing web pages. And we can design only static web pages using HTML. In order to make it dynamic, we have to make use of scripting languages. Some programming contents are to be embedded in HTML pages. So there comes the scripting language. We have seen different scripting languages like VB script, JavaScript, then PHP, Perl, and so on. Here we are going to discuss JavaScript in detail. Name of the chapter is Client-Side Scripting Using JavaScript. As we all know, JavaScript is a client-side scripting language, which the scripts written in JavaScript will get executed in the client machine. Client machine means if a person connects to internet through his laptop, he types in a web browser like Internet Explorer or Mozilla Firefox or Google Chrome, any browser like that, www so and so. So his computer is the client computer and he is requesting service from a server which is kept away from him, and he will get response or service from the server. So here the laptop, or if he is using his mobile phone is the client or the laptop is the client. So JavaScript code get executed in client machine. So JavaScript is a scripting language used for writing client-side scripts, the scripts that get executed in the client machine. So here we have some basic concepts about JavaScript. JavaScript is a client-side scripting language. Script is program content in HTML pages. So program contents, in order to make our websites or web pages dynamic, we make use of some language or programming contents in an HTML page. So such contents are called, programming contents are called scripts. So JavaScript is a client-side scripting language. The second point is JavaScript is the most commonly used client-side scripting language. JavaScript is not the only client-side scripting language. We have VB script, which is from the Microsoft Corporation. But the most commonly used, versatile and flexible scripting language is the JavaScript. And the next point is it was developed by Brendan Eich. Its name was Mocha initially when developed for Netscape browser. This JavaScript was initially, its name was Mocha. You can read it Mocha or Mocha, which was developed for Netscape browser. Later, it became popular and almost all browsers supported this JavaScript. So it is supported by almost all web browsers. JavaScript uses syntax of C++. As we know, the syntax is The syntax of C++, we have already learned C++. It is C++ is a case sensitive language. So we are using small case letters for keywords and all. And a custom that we use for naming variables in JavaScript is lower camel case for identifiers. That is, lower camel case means if there are two words, some average, two words like initial cost. So the word initial starts with small letter initial, and the cost, second word, starts with capital C. That is called camel case. Sum of digits. Excuse me. Let that be the name of the variable. Sum starts with a small letter S. Sum of O will be the capital letter. Of digits D will be capital. So that is the way of writing or naming identifiers in JavaScript. So these are the basic concepts about JavaScript. Now, why JavaScript or client-side scripting? Why we are using this JavaScript, or what is the necessity of client-side scripting? Actually, we are communicating with the server. Server can do the operations that we request, but server is getting requests, hundreds or thousands or millions of requests in a short period of time. So all these requests cannot be processed simultaneously by the server. So we have to reduce the load of the server as well as the network traffic. So the operations that can be performed in the user system or client system can be done from the client itself. So this will reduce the network traffic. It will improve the speed of entire system. So client-side scripting languages are used for validation of data at the client side itself. What is meant by validation of data? Suppose we are checking the result of higher secondary examination, and you can see the site requesting your register number and date of birth, or register number, say. So we know register number is a 7-digit number. It always contains digits, no alpha characters. So if a boy or a student enters a register number which has less than 7 digits, instead of sending the data directly to the server, the client machine itself says this is an invalid register number, right? And suppose some alphabets are included in the register number. The client machine evaluates or validates the register number. It says this is not a valid register number. So we have to enter the valid number. So what happens if we send this register number, wrong register number, directly to server? What happens? Server will wait for that, accept that register number and pass a query to the database machine, and it will search this register number in a very large database that contains 4.5 lakhs of results of 4.5 lakh students. So it will be a time-consuming process, and finally it will give this is not a valid number, or this does not exist, and we will get a result like that. So we are sending this register number, and the server is giving request to the database machine, and database searches that number, and finally it will be a worst case that there is no such a number and returns there is no number, and so on. So this consumes the time of the server. Instead of that, we are performing this validation operation from the client itself. So it is the necessity, actually it is the necessity of the client-side scripting. It's also used for performing basic calculations and manipulations on input data at client side. If we require, suppose we are entering marks for application, online application for scholarship, and it requires calculation of your percentage of your score. You can directly enter your scores and the computer calculates the percentage score. And instead of sending this mark to the server, the machine, the client machine, calculates all these things. So all these calculations and manipulation can be performed at client side. This reduces network traffic and workload on the server. So the advantage of using this client side scripting is this reduces the network traffic and workload on the server. So this is the necessity of client side scripting language. Now we are going to the technical details. See, actually this script is embedded in HTML page. We know an HTML page starts with the HTML tag, and it has header section, head section, body section, and comment section, etc. Anything to be displayed or written or given in the body section. Here the script tag is used to embed the script code in HTML page. So any script code, JavaScript code or VB code, anything that comes in an HTML page will be in between script tag and /script tag. So script tag is used to include scripting code in an HTML page. The language attribute of script. So script has an attribute called a language. Sometimes it is written lang, lang short form. So script tag has an important attribute called language. This attribute is used to specify the name of the scripting language used. So language equal to, within quotes we will write JavaScript. Language equal to, within quotes we will write VB script. So it decides, this attribute decides which language is used for, which scripting language is used for writing the script. So here, if you are using JavaScript, language equal to, will write language equal to JavaScript. So the language attribute of script tag is used to specify the name of the scripting language used. Here we use JavaScript as the client side scripting language, therefore we will give JavaScript as the value for language attribute. The script tag can be used in an HTML page as follows. How we can use the script tag? This is the way of using script. This way you can use script language equal to JavaScript, and here comes the script code, then /script. So in between the script and /script there comes the JavaScript code. So we have an example here. This is a simple example to print welcome to JavaScript. Example, see, it starts with HTML and ends with HTML. Here we have head section, a title is given, no problem. Then we have body and /body. In here, inside the body section, we have script and /script. Here says language equal to JavaScript. So we are going to use scripting language as JavaScript, and this is the only statement in JavaScript here we have used in this code. See the document dot write within bracket, then within quotes welcome to JavaScript, quotes is closed, bracket closed, semicolon. So this follows C++ language syntax actually. Every statement in JavaScript ends with the semicolon. So this is an example. So this code actually produces the same output of this HTML code. So this is pure HTML. HTML code to produce the same output. Here body, within the body, welcome to JavaScript. We have written that. So we can see an example here. See, this is I'm using Windows. If you are using Ubuntu Linux, we have Genie available. You can use that editor. You can run or test that code in that Genie editor, no problem. Here, if you are using Windows system, you can type the code in notepad and save it with the extension .html. Since it is an HTML file, we are embedding JavaScript in HTML file. So here, look at this, the code HTML, head, body, script, language equal to JavaScript, document.write, welcome to JavaScript / script. Now we are going to execute this. How we can execute? See, simply you go to the folder where it is stored. So here this is the code first. I'm double clicking on that. Then it will be that the result of that code will be displayed in a web page. So this is the output. Welcome to JavaScript. This is the only output that we are anticipating. It's a simple program. How JavaScript is working, to show that how JavaScript is working. So this is the output. Now we have HTML code here. I am opening it with Notepad. So here there is no script code. We have written welcome to JavaScript only, and if you double click on this, it will also be the same output that we have got earlier, right? Welcome to JavaScript. Now here comes the question: what is actually the use of this JavaScript? So this document.write, this statement is the JavaScript statement which is used to display something in the body section of an HTML page. So here we are explaining it. Document.write, the first statement that we are going to learn in JavaScript is document.write. Document.write is the statement, or write is the function which is used to display or to include some text, something in the body section of an HTML page. Here the document starts for the body section, and write is the function to display or to include something. So this statement is used in JavaScript to include some text in the body section of a web page. So suppose we want to print hello, we can write document.write within the bracket quotes hello. If you want to print hello world, document.write within quotes hello world. So the document represents the body section of the web page. Now, what is this line? Script language equal to JavaScript. We are again explaining this. This line tells the browser that the code coming after this line is written in JavaScript. Whenever the browser sees this tag, it understands or it recognizes that some script code is going to come, and the language used for writing that script is JavaScript, so that the browser must get ready with the interpreter for interpreting JavaScript. So this line tells the browser that the code coming after this line is written in JavaScript. This causes JavaScript engine to come active and interpret code during runtime. What happens? This line causes the browser to enable JavaScript engine. What is JavaScript engine? This is the software content that is used for interpreting JavaScript code. We are writing this JavaScript code in high-level language. It is to be converted and it is to be executed into machine form. So this causes JavaScript engine to come active and interpret the code during the runtime. JavaScript engine is a virtual machine for executing JavaScript code. What is JavaScript engine? It is a virtual machine. It is a software content for executing JavaScript code. Every statement in JavaScript ends with semicolon. This is to be noted, as in the case of C++, every statement in JavaScript ends with semicolon. Now, we have some example code here. HTML head. All these things are familiar with. Then starts the body, H1. H1. What is H1 for? H1 is for header 1, first level header, largest header. And in between these H1 and H1, we are inserting the script language equal to JavaScript. So whatever be the output of this code, this part, this script code, will be highlighted, will be enlarged to the H1 level. So here, this code is for this is in H1 head. This will be the output, and that output will be this output, this text to be displayed on the body section will be converted to H1 level. So we can mix HTML code and script code. Now then we are another script again. Script language equal to JavaScript document.write. So here, instead of writing this H2 here, H2/H2 here, we are putting this text H2. This is in H2 head /H2 using this document write. So what happens? This is in H2 head. This part will be enlarged to the header level 2. So here we are mixing this HTML tag along with this. So we can write, so the inference from this is we can write any number of script tag and script codes in body section in an HTML page, as well as we can mix HTML codes and JavaScript. Now let us see how this code works. So here we have example. This is in head 1A, H1 head. This is in H2. So what is the code? View source. See, this is the code. So it's small. We can open it in Notepad. So here this H1 is applied to this part. This is in head 1. Actually head 1, H1, it requires a /H1 here, right? H1 here. Okay. And now we are script H2/H2. So this is the code. Now suppose we are changing this here. Instead of this H1, we are making it H3. So before that, your H1, saving that file, and you're taking that, the output, taking the output. So H1 head. Now I'm going to edit this, open with Notepad, right? And here I'm going to write this H3. I'm going to save and closing this one. Again taking this example to see the change. So in this way we can edit and modify these codes. Now see one more example. Suppose we are going to change this H2 to H1. Let us see. See, I'm taking this code, open with Notepad, and I'm going to change this to H1. So the bigger head, H1. In H1, right? and saving this, closing, viewing the output. So I have changed it inside the JavaScript code and it is updated. Now we have some questions here. Now your progress, these are the questions from your textbook. Name an attribute of script tag. So we have seen script tag has one attribute. Now it is lang or language. So the answer is lang or language. Now the second question is, in JavaScript, dash function is used to print a text in the body section of HTML page. The only statement that we have learned in this chapter is document.write. So the JavaScript function used to print a text in the body section of an HTML page is document.write. This is the answer. Now the third question is, dash is the value given to the language attribute of script tag to specify that the code follows is JavaScript code. In the script tag, along with the language attribute, we will set some value and says the code following is JavaScript. So what is the value is to be given? Language equal to JavaScript. So the answer is JavaScript. So we have to give this JavaScript to specify the code following is written in JavaScript. What is the use of JavaScript engine? What is the use of JavaScript engine? We have seen whenever the browser sees language equal to JavaScript, it enables the JavaScript engine. What is the purpose of JavaScript engine? To interpret the JavaScript code. So the purpose is, use is to interpret and execute JavaScript code. If there is no JavaScript engine in a browser, the JavaScript code will not be executed. Sometimes users may disable the JavaScript engine. Then what happens? The JavaScript code will not be interpreted and executed. So JavaScript engine is for this purpose, interpreting and executing JavaScript code. Now state whether the following statements are true or false. JavaScript is the only client-side scripting language. Is it true? No, it is false. The other client-side scripting language that we have learned is VBScript. VBScript is a client-side scripting language. So Java is not the only client-side scripting language, but JavaScript is the popular, most commonly used scripting language. Then script tag is used to include client-side scripting language in an HTML page. Yes, it is true. Script tag is used to include client-side scripting language in HTML page. An HTML file can contain only one script tag in it. Now we have seen an example. Any number of script and /script tags can be included. Any number of code segments or sections can be added in an HTML page. So an HTML file can contain only one script tag. It is false. We can mix JavaScript code with HTML code. It is true that we have seen we can mix JavaScript code and HTML code. But there is a issue with the interpretation. You cannot directly write HTML code in between JavaScript codes, and you cannot write JavaScript code in between HTML codes. But there are some conditions, but there are some syntax for this. If we follow that syntax, we can mix HTML code and JavaScript code. JavaScript code must be placed within script and /script tag. Yes, it's a must. That's true. Every JavaScript statement ends in a semicolon. That's also true. So these are the basic concepts about JavaScript. I repeat, JavaScript is the most commonly used or most popular client-side scripting language. Client-side scripts are executed in client machine. It is in order to reduce the network traffic and load on server. And in order to execute a JavaScript code, we need JavaScript engine in a browser. We can mix JavaScript with HTML, or we embed script with HTML within HTML, and we save an HTML page that contains JavaScript with the extension .html. Any browser that has script engine will execute, JavaScript engine will execute these HTML codes that contain JavaScript. Then script tag is used to embed script JavaScript in or any script in HTML page. It has an important attribute called the language, which is used to specify the language of scripting or scripting language used. So these are the basic concepts of JavaScript. In next session we will delve into the details of JavaScript. Thank you.